what type of organization was your software built for? So Benjamin, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Excited to be here. That's something who it was built for came to kind of be a core when you're going through a selection process and going through this. As a general contractor, then I end up interfacing with lots of different project management softwares because sometimes the owner says, hey, we're using this one, we have to use it. Or sometimes the architect has already picked one. Sometimes with joint ventures, then the joint venture partner already has one. And so each of those comes with its own kind of perspective on what kind of data they're looking at, how it's being saved, and how the interface is. And so knowing that something was built for a general contractor and being used for the general contractor can be very beneficial. I think one of the main things in that sticks out to me is that the general contractor ends up being in the middle most of the time, right? The owner and the architect are interfacing through the general contractor, and then you have all of the trade contractors that participate as well. And being able to be in the middle and have something that's built to be that hub of information to where all these different parties can interface, I think is significant and important in how that comes together. I guess I've seen a couple different times in the past where, hey, we're going to use this software solution, and we start down that road, and then we say, hey, we need to get our trade contractors on board. And I've had both architect engineering firms and owners say, well, no, this isn't for them. We can't have that many users. We can't have them participate. This is just for us to talk to you as a general contractor. And that kind of breaks the communication cycle a little bit because lots of times the RFIs, the submittals, most of those are being generated by the trade contractors, and they need to be vetted by the general contractor. But if they can't come and participate, then you start to have difficulties. And so, oh, I thought you were going to say something, Dan. Okay. All right. So, and then another aspect of that is whether you are using primarily a drawing process or you're making the transition to a BIM VDC process where you're focusing heavily on models. Having that intermediate source of information, right? That your project management system is there in the middle and can manage that drawing set and manage that set of models. That is very important. And then, as someone just pointed out in the chats, what about commissioning management? That falls into that same group there for commissioning management, is that a lot of that information is going to be coming from the trade contractors and has to feed to every other group. And so you want to make sure that the architect has easy review of that and the owner has easy review of that. But the vast majority of that information is coming from the trades. And so having a consolidated set of documents that's coming from the architects and engineers that then can match up with shop drawings and shop models and our coordination process that's coming from the trades, conditioning information that's coming from the trades, or even a consultant. You have a dedicated commissioning agent that is reviewing everything, an important part of the process. So we have to keep that in mind. So asking a vendor, who is this built for? I've worked with some that were built for the architect and engineer. And what generally happens is they have a harder time with the RFI submittals and a model process. They do well with publishing the drawings out, but sometimes they don't do as well with kind of marking up and as building those drawings as they go. I've dealt with some that it's coming from the owner's perspective. And when it comes from the owner's perspective, the things that I found difficult are that the owner isn't necessarily as worried about the details. They're more worried about the relationship with the architect and the general contractor. And then there's all of those details, and they'll be like, oh no, we don't want to see every RFI, and we don't want to see every submittal and all those sort of things. And so when it comes from the owner's perspective, they're more worried about a pro forma. They're worried about 5 different projects and seeing some stats on the projects and making sure everything's running smooth. And so those details then get lost. Those details are what makes the construction process go. That's what really pulls it together and gives everybody their instruction on how they're going to make all this happen. And so, and then I've also had the opportunity to work with software that was built from a trade contractor perspective. And the trade contractor perspective, they have the details there and they have the drawing sets there, but when it's from the trade contractor perspective, it doesn't quite get the interaction that you need. It's really, it's got to be able to have multiple options and multiple flows. And so when it's from the trade contractor perspective, lots of times you'll see it written as, hey, the trade contractor asks an RFI and they get an answer back. And when reality, it usually has to get asked and then get routed to maybe an architect who's going to send it to a consultant and then back to the architect, and then the architect sometimes will vet that past an owner or come back. And so knowing how it's built and seeing how deep your workflows go, that's part of why it's easier if it's at the hub as a general contractor, because then it doesn't have to go as deep. It can branch out. If it starts at one of the other spots, it has to get pretty deep to get back through to everything. And that makes it a little bit more difficult.